guys, it's Gretchen and welcome back to my channel. So a question that I hear a lot, whether it's in the comments of any of my videos or sometimes I'll get them in my DMs, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter, I get the question, can you tell me if my piercing is infected? More often than not, it's not infected. If you have an infected piercing, you would know it. For today's video, I wanted to differentiate between an infected piercing and just an irritated piercing. More often than not, your piercing is merely irritated and not actually infected. It's kind of like when a bump appears on a piercing and people automatically assume it's a keloid. More often than not, it's not a keloid. It's just a piercing bump. But people kind of assume the worst, they jump to conclusions, and they automatically assume it's the worst thing possible. But I'm gonna help you differentiate between the two today. So is your piercing actually infected, or did it somehow just get irritated? So let's look at an irritation. An irritated piercing is gonna have the following things. May not have all of these things, but it most likely will have some of these things. And that's something like slight redness, slight swelling, slight soreness, a little bit of a bump, just a small one, a little smidge of a bump. These bumps are usually not anything like super concerning or really aggressive in how they appear. They're just like this tiny little bump. You may also experience crusties. These are usually dry and flaky. And you might even see a little bit of thin fluid that kind of is clear or has a slight tint of yellow. Now, all of those things are completely normal if a piercing is irritated or if it's brand new. If you ever have a brand new piercing and never experience any of those things, wow, you're lucky. But an irritated piercing can happen from anything. I can't tell you how many times I irritated my forehead helix piercing because of mask wearing. Did wearing masks lead to an infected piercing for me? No, it just irritated the heck out of my forehead helix because the little strap would go right there, and without thinking, I'd just go to rip it off, and of course, it would get caught and kind of pull with it. It wouldn't pull the jewelry out, but it would tug on it. I cannot tell you how many times this would just get a little bit red, would sometimes be sore, especially if it happened multiple times in a row, which it did, because I'm forgetful. I never experienced any crusties, sometimes had a little bit of fluid, like on the inside, just from where it would like push on it. But that is an irritation. That's not an infection. That piercing never got infected, it was just mad. I've heard a lot of people say that their conch piercing would also get irritated with mask wearing. Although I never experienced that one myself, can totally see it. Again, kind of the same principle. Irritation is usually nothing to worry about. Just continue with your aftercare and it should go away. Again, an irritation for everything is gonna be slight. So you've got just a little bit of redness, just a little bit of swelling. It's just a tiny bit sore. Things like that. It's not gonna be anything over the top. Now, let's get into an infected piercing. If your piercing is infected, you're gonna know it. It's nothing that you're gonna sit there and question, is my piercing infected? Or maybe it's something else. No, you're gonna know if it's infected or not. In fact, I can show you pictures of my Daith piercing when it was infected. That is a true infection. Go watch the entire video where I discuss it, if you would like. And I look back on it now, and now that I've had an infected piercing like that, anytime I question a piercing, I'm like, oh, you're just mad. You're not actually infected. So what should you look for in regards to an infected piercing? So whereas an irritated piercing is gonna have a slight of everything, an infected piercing is gonna go like crash through a wall, have the worst thing possible. So whereas an irritated piercing has slight redness, you're gonna notice a great deal of redness with an infected piercing. You have a little bit of swelling with an irritated piercing, your piercing's gonna hurt because it's so swollen that it's pushing on the jewelry. You have a little bit of soreness with an irritated piercing, that piercing is gonna be sore as heck when it's infected. And whereas with an irritated piercing, you have just a little bit of discharge that's usually like clear or a slight yellowish tint in nature, you're gonna get some pus with an infected piercing that's usually greenish or like a dark yellow. You also may see blood. Something else that may come up with an infected piercing is a major bump. Super concerning. When you look at it, you're like, oh, that doesn't look good. That's usually the sign of an infected piercing. Two things that don't typically come along with an irritated piercing that you'll definitely notice with an infected one. If you can feel heat of any kind coming from a piercing, and you're kind of experiencing some of these other symptoms, it's probably infected. Heat is a huge identifier in seeing if something is infected, and that's for any kind of infection. And another thing is the smell. Have you ever smelled pus before? It's not a good smell. So if you're experiencing any kind of thicker discharge than just like a little clear liquid coming out, you may also notice there's a little bit of a smell to it. It's a pretty good sign you got an infection on your hands. So when you have an infected piercing, I promise you're gonna know that it's an infected piercing. Yes, sometimes if our piercings get irritated, our immediate response is to freak out and be like, oh my God, what happened? What do I do to get rid of this? How do I get it to go back down so it looks normal? But by panicking like that and thinking the worst case scenario and doing everything to basically cure an infection when it's only irritated could possibly irritate it even more. So when you experience any kind of issue with a piercing, the first thing to do is to just kind of remain calm about it. Don't think worst case scenario right off the bat. Identify what the problem is before you just dive right into the aftercare. You gotta figure out what the issue is at first. If you determine that your piercing really is just irritated, try and find what the cause of irritation is. So for example, like I said, my forward helix was constantly getting irritated when I was wearing a mask all the time. And it's because when I would just take it off, think about it, the little string that would come right across here would kind of tug at it. Because of that, I realized that was what was causing the irritation. And so I just had to become conscious about when I took it off. Never happened when I put it on, only when I took it off. But if you find that your piercing is infected, continue with your aftercare. Doing salt soaks are really gonna be helpful. Again, I point you toward when I cured my Doth infection. Don't go that route. If you know what the route is that I went, don't go it. Do as I say, not as I do. But do keep up with your aftercare in order to care for it. You may also need to seek professional advice or help either from your piercer or from a doctor. And I will leave you with this. Make sure you identify what is irritating your piercing, because there is the slight possibility that an irritation, if it continues, could lead to an infection. Not always, especially if you identify what is causing the irritation, but just know it's a possibility. Let me know in the comments below if you've dealt with any irritations of your piercings recently, or if you've actually dealt with a full-blown infection before. The only true infection that I've ever had with a piercing was my Doth. There was a time where I thought my tragus, the first one that I got done, I had a little bit of infection, but really it was just a granuloma. Hopefully this video puts your mind at ease if you're currently questioning about one of your piercings, like, oh my God, is this actually infected or is it just irritated? Hopefully this can help you. Special thank you to my patrons. You can help support the channel on Patreon while having access to videos early, viewing patron-only content, and more. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up. Go on down there and hit that subscribe button, wherever it may be, because I don't know, even though I do. This is just my shtick now. Also hit that notification bell in case you want to know when I upload, and in case YouTube wants to let you know when I upload, because I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye guys.